It is time for the movie raid, and this time, new victim tonight. It's an actress and a model. Dare I say? Once you say it. Say it. Say it!
Former model. Let's say retired model.
Oh, are you retired?
From modeling, I can say with confidence, I am retired. From modeling, yes. Acting, not so much.
Chelah Horsdal. That's right.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to join you for Movie Raid. This is fun.
Oh, yeah. And you've been in quite a few TV series as well as films like Alien vs. Predator 2, like Requiem, and including the upcoming Planet of the Apes, which is Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Indeed, I was. Rupert Wyatt has directed what will be a prequel to Planet of the Apes, and it's really exciting. I keep seeing new trailers come out for it, and even though I'm in it, and normally I don't get too excited about seeing the movies that I'm in, I'm really excited about this one. It looks really good. It looks like there's a complicated story as opposed to it just being straight-up action and extraordinary special effects. So, yeah, I'm getting ready to go to L.A. and see it for the premiere.
Oh, awesome. So how long has this film been in the making? I know it was announced about, last year or so?
Yeah, from what I understand, it was in pre-production for quite some time in development. And we shot last summer in Vancouver from starting in July straight through until, it must have been the end of September that they were in principal photography. And then a little bit of reshoots after that. So it was quite an endeavor. It's one of the largest crews I've ever worked with. We had, because of all the special effects, we had 2 full crews. One that was your standard movie-making crew of 150 to 200 people for building sets and all your camera departments. And then there was a complete secondary crew from Weta, which is the special effects house out of New Zealand. And they had an additional, 150 people with doing all the motion capture. So in every set, they would have the regular crew set up with the cameras, and then there would be 35 cameras around the perimeter of the top of the sets shooting all of the motion capture stuff, which was just amazing to watch. It was, it was a big deal, this show.
Yeah, are you going to be doing pretty much rehearsing as being a monkey?
I myself am not a monkey. They leave that to the experts.
I know they did that in the remake. They worked hard on that.
Oh my goodness! It's I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Serkis, who of course was in all of the Lord of the Rings films doing Gollum. He's an amazing motion capture artist, and his physicality and what he's able to interpret of the apes. It was just beautiful to watch. That man's an artist. So he was the star, if you will, as the ape, as Caesar. And watching him walk in normal Andy Serkis strut, and then seeing him drop into the physicality of the ape was a thing of beauty. He's really, really good. So, yeah. Suffice it to say that the apes, that's a massive skill on its own. It's there's a lot of computer generated, obviously, in this film, but the majority of it is based on the artistry of the actors who are wearing the motion capture suits and really, really bringing character to these animals. I mean, they were just extraordinary to watch.
Yeah. Your character, what's the significance of this for this film?
Irina is a small supporting character in the grand scheme of things. There are a few themes that are already alluded to in some of the previews that are out there about, I think, humanity's tendency to put animals in cages, literally and figuratively. One of the themes is dealing with Alzheimer's, and James Franco's character comes up for a cure for Alzheimer's. And without giving too much away, the storyline that I play into has to do with dealing of the effects of Alzheimer's on a family and on relationships within that family, and how difficult it can be for people to deal with the deterioration of their loved ones who seem to be physically completely fine and right there, yet mentally they have gone to a place where they are no longer able to care for themselves, and how we as families deal with that emotionally and then practically, and for the safety of people. So Irina comes into a family and does her best to try and help them cope, and it doesn't necessarily go as she would hope.
So is this like a whole new type technique for you, considering you played in quite a bit of television playing characters like that?
It was, I think that for me as an artist, regardless of the genre, regardless of the type of character, I'm bringing a lot of the same methods of finding a character to every role that I play. So, I mean, Irina is, obviously she's an independent character of her own, but a lot of her story and a lot of the way that she tries to help people, I'm going to do that whether I'm playing a doctor in something else, a lawyer, a mom, whatever it is. It's trying to find the truth of her and her reason for being there. So despite the fact that this was a huge movie, I don't feel like the work and the process of the work was really all that different from, say, if I'm doing an independent or anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a really unique experience in terms of, from my perspective, what was unique, of course, was, as I already referred to, was working within the context of our full crew and then the whole motion capture crew on top of it. There was a lot going on in that space for the days that I was there. So trying to find a center, and I was fortunate to work in my scenes with both John Lithgow, who is just a mind-boggling talent, and James Franco, who was delightful. So it made it really easy to stay connected to the actors that I was working with, regardless of how much buzz and fuss and business was going on around us.
Well, because for a while it was a little bit hard to tell what type of film this is. Either was a sequel, is it a prequel, where's it at? And they don't know. They say it's not after the last Ape film, and it was hard to tell. It's a whole new story, is what they said.
I think, it's a standalone story. I don't think that you need to have seen any of the other Apes films in order for this to make sense or to track, which is unlike something like AVP2, where if you weren't familiar with the Alien story and or the Predator story, it didn't necessarily stand alone as having a beginning, a middle, and an end. I mean, even that opening shot of the alien Predator in the spaceship with the chest exploding out of his chest. If you hadn't seen Alien versus Predator, that wouldn't track. That wouldn't necessarily make sense. You wouldn't understand how that had happened. Whereas in this film, from what I understand, and again, a lot of it is super duper top secret that they didn't even tell me half of the stuff that was going on. It is a standalone story. And it's also a lot more about actors telling characters' stories as opposed to the action of perhaps some of the Apes movies in the past. I mean, as I said, when you've got someone like John Lithgow, who, I don't know if you saw his arc in Dexter a couple of seasons ago, but that man has got some mad skills. And his skills go beyond film and television. He does a one-man show. He's a writer. He's just an extraordinary all-around artist and talent. So to see what he brought to this character was, it was really beautiful. It was very inspiring, and incredibly humbling. He's such a beautiful, humble man who has had massive amounts of success in his career. And I don't know, he's been doing this for 35, 40 years at this point? So, yeah, it was dynamite. But that's a very long way of answering a question that, yes, I believe this is a standalone film.
Yeah, when do you expect this film to actually be fully released to theaters?
August 12th.
August 12th.
Is what I understand, yeah.
Oh. Well, yeah, they did take a long time, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's with all of that motion capture, I mean, that stuff is tedious and detail-oriented and takes an awfully long time to try and generate computer images that are going to be realistic. And that I think our eye in general historically, we can spot CGI, and because it doesn't move, it's going to fit really, really well. That's how well it's done.
Yeah, speaking of which, do you feel comfortable with CGI a lot, or especially with this film?
I didn't have to do much green screen for this film. I was dealing with real people and practical sets, which is always a gift. I have in the past had to do a fair amount of green screen work, and it's definitely harder. I mean, my job is to be able to bring reality to a situation, despite the fact that there are 45 people standing around staring quietly. So to have an intimate moment with another actor, to actually have a real interaction, that's what we get hired to do. When you're in a practical set where there is a glass of water in front of you, where there is a couch and a fireplace around you, it's much easier to that reality and to trick myself as an artist into believing that this is really happening. However, when you're on a green screen set and you have to imagine that there is a gigantic monster next to you, or imagine that you are on a spaceship and you're seeing the universe in front of you, it's infinitely more difficult to play those tricks on yourself that this is a reality. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, it takes a great deal of imagination. How about that? And also usually a director hollering from behind a wall somewhere, and now the monster is coming towards you.
Like the old school days. Oh yeah, on a string or something. It's coming towards you. Now not scared now. Ah.
Exactly. And now the spaceship is blowing up. You know, when you're actually seeing something like that, holy Toledo, it's so easy to react to it. But when you have to imagine it, there are a chain of events that must happen in your imagination in order to get that authentic reaction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But do you prefer science fiction films? It seems like you've been in a lot of them.
It does, doesn't it?
A majority of your career seems like you've been in nothing but sci-fi, and then, of course, you got your television sci-fi as well.
Yeah, there's been... well, I live in Vancouver. That's my home base. And we have, fortunately, over the years, we've got a really, really good crews up here. And somehow along the way, there was this niche that started to happen with a lot of sci-fi shooting up here. And I don't know if it's because Sci-Fi Network got the hook up here, whether Space decided that they were comfortable shooting here. It seems to have started with the X-Files. And from there, the Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone, and a lot of these shows began shooting in Vancouver and really are the foundation for much of our industry up here. And then from there, of course, we had Andromeda and all 3 Stargate franchises, Battlestar Galactica, which remains one of my favorite series of all time that I was both involved in and as an audience member to watch. I just think it's genius television. And so there are so many producers and directors and production companies that have become accustomed to shooting up here, we just get more sci-fi. So as a working actor in Vancouver, I'm in more sci-fi as a consequence of that.
Wow.
It wasn't a goal of mine. It wasn't that this is something that I wanted necessarily to strive for. However, I'm incredibly grateful and really fortunate to be able to make my living doing an awful lot of sci-fi. On top of which, the fans are extraordinary in this genre. I mean, more so than any other. I get more mail and emails and fan letters from people about science fiction than any of the other films I've ever done combined.
No, it seems like science fiction is slowly coming back like what it used to be.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the horror genre is just dead.
You know, I feel like some people have been trying to breathe new life into the horror genre over the last few years, like with Masters of Horror and a couple of films that have come along. But it seems to work on the short term. But you're right; it hasn't grabbed an audience in the same way that sci-fi continues to.
Yeah, sci-fi has been a little bit in and out for quite a few years, but it's just now actually getting some attention. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, the horror genre is just, you don't see any decent slasher films anymore. You don't see, what's the whole talk of the town anymore. You just see a bunch of remakes, a bunch of prequels, a bunch of sequels, a bunch of more remakes, all over the place.
Yeah, well, it's not to be underestimated that this is the film business, and this is the primary aspect. And if people feel and by people, I mean production companies and studios, if they feel they can make money on something, they're going to make it.
Yeah.
More often than not, if there's not a guaranteed audience for something, no one's going to spend the minimum $20 million that it costs at this point to be able to make a film.
It's also a big risk.
Sorry, yeah?
It's also a big risk making, especially if it's off an existing franchise. It's a big risk.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're remaking off a franchise, like I said, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and many other classics in the day, it's a big risk because a majority of them don't make it anywhere because, like I said, it's a new generation. That's what they always say, the younger generation. That's what's more aimed to than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue that at times it's almost a bigger risk to try and create something brand new within that genre, because at the very least you've got the brand identity of something like the Friday the 13th. People know, if you say Friday the 13th, regardless if they're a horror fan or not, they know that means scary.
Yeah.
And they know that is something that is, they know the genre that it's going to fit into. If you were to come up with a Tuesday the 10th, as a completely new brand, you're going to have to work a lot harder to establish the brand identity and to get an audience to come out and see something that they are, as of yet, unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
I mean, getting people out to movies, period, at this point, is an extraordinary challenge.
Yeah, now it's all digital now. That's why.
Yeah.
You can just download off your computer. Oh. Are you actually for that or against that? Are you or neutral?
Well, I think to fight it is naive. I mean, the reality is that with smartphones and iPads and laptop computers, everything is available to us. People are going to source out films and television in that way. If we can figure out a model that everyone can get paid for doing that, which I think is starting to happen, it's not a great payment schedule at this point. Like with something like Netflix, I don't know how much the artists at the end of the day are actually making, and it's hard to weigh out exposure and the value of exposure as compared to the value of the dollar and actually getting paid for what we do. So I'm certainly not against more people, a bigger audience and more people seeing things. It'd be really nice to figure out a way that we don't have to work for free in order for that to happen.
Where you had to break your ass like in the olden days where you didn't have any type of resources. It's basically on the streets at that time. Yeah,
it's true. I'm also the child of, my father is an artist. He's a musician, has been for over 40 years. So I grew up with an understanding that it's really important for artists to get paid for what they do.
Yeah.
If artists don't get paid, they can't create. And if they can't create, I think it really costs, culturally, it really costs our both of our countries, Canada, the U.S., it costs every country, quite frankly. Because if you can't be making the art, then there's nothing for people to consume and nothing to open their minds and get them to think about things from a different perspective, right?
Yeah, it's just like with piracy, music and film are just day in day you're going to get piracy of that, and you can't stop it no matter what.
No, it's just a lot easier now. People used to make mixed tapes. They used to be able to take their music and make their own tapes. Well, now it's an extension of that. It's just a heck of a lot easier for people to pirate and send it out there into the ether, which you're not going to stop it, but if we can figure out a way to try and ensure that people can afford to continue to produce the content, otherwise there's not going to be anything to steal.
You can hold it down, but you can't stop it.
Yeah. Well, and you can figure out a way that everyone gets what they need, I think. I mean, I'm certainly not smart enough to be the person who figures out the financial model for that, but it can't be impossible. If we can put a man on the moon, we can figure this out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all about pretty much the credibility and getting the credit you deserve. So it's like, especially with the characters that you play, and you ensure that you're not getting ripped off because you play that character, even though the writer or the director assigned you that role. It's like, well, you play that role, you deserve something out of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, otherwise any Joe Blow on the street can give it their best.
It's just like some people may or may not argue with this, but like with Jason Voorhees, they say, well, anyone can play Jason Voorhees. Oh, yeah, they could, but can they do it right?
Exactly.
Oh, anyone can play.
But that the majority of the population probably have a secret wish to be able to be an actor, but the reality is it's something that's infinitely more difficult than showing up on red carpets and getting all of the swag. I mean, there's schooling that is required, and there is training and commitment and extreme sacrifice that I don't think everyone is actually built to be able to make the sacrifice that is required. And in turn, people need to be compensated for it. Because, you know, there are an awful lot of things that I haven't been able to do over the years because of my career. But whether it's going away for a weekend with friends or whether it's getting a suntan, you know, I can't do certain things. So I think that we deserve to get paid for all of the hard work.
Yeah, no matter how big or small the role could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could be the woman holding up a sign that says "Kiss my ass." You better get credit for that. You better get some compensation for that.
I want compensation if you're going to kiss my ass. Come on.
That's how good I am. Kiss my ass. There's a kiss my ass lady over there. Give the autograph.
I think I'd rather carry the free hug sign than the kiss my ass sign. It seems much more Canadian.
Speaking of which, you worked both in the U.S. and Canada. Which is more lenient in the industry? Is Canada pretty strict on, as far as trying to get some roles going on over there, or is it pretty much the same thing as you would get like in Hollywood or something?
I think it's probably pretty much the same thing. I've based my career out of Vancouver for various reasons. The least of which is not that I get to work all the time up here. So, in Hollywood, I would be in my category probably, I don't know, 1 in 5,000 of people who would be perfect for a certain type of role or would be considered for a certain type of role. In Vancouver, I'm probably 1 of 20. So I mean, we have a very deep talent pool up here. There are a lot of people that producers and directors can go to play a certain role. However, I have a group of peers that 9 times out of 10 you can guarantee that the role is going to go to one of us, and much of that has to do with our level of experience, the amount of training that we have done, and I think probably just a comfort level within our own artistry. So there's so many. There are Alison Down, Michelle Harrison, Alison Hosick. There's a really beautiful, wonderful, talented group of women that are my peers, where I know if it doesn't go to me, it's very likely going to go to one of them, or vice versa.
Well,
if we were to go to Hollywood and base our careers out of LA, which many have gone through, climbing the ladder in Hollywood, it's infinitely more difficult down there to even be seen, to even get in the room with a casting director. It's a bigger talent pool.
It's almost like sending in a resume for a job.
Yeah.
An application. Oh, they'll look at it, but they won't even give a shit about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I said earlier, it's a business, and if they want the most successful product, then they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they have the best person for a role. And not that isn't happening up here, but what happens is the cream rises to the top, which sounds a little bit arrogant. That's not my intention, but ultimately, there's a group of people that are really good at what they do, and we're going to get seen as a consequence of that. So, so it's working in Canada. It's very blissful for me because I get to be in the same town as my family, and my friends are all up here, like old friends. So why wouldn't I want to work here? And I don't know if you saw any of the Olympics, but this is hot damn. This is a beautiful place to live. So
I'll bet it is.
Yeah, despite the occasional riot of a bunch of hoodlums that pretend to be hockey fans, which, for the record, is not who those people were. But that aside, it's a utopia up here. I mean, I love coming down to the States and working, but I also love being able to fly home and go for a hike in the mountains here, which is is sort of my daily routine.
No. And since that you've been in television, do you actually prefer to work on film than television? Because there's certain benefits between both of them. You can, like, for television, you can film the whole thing within like maybe less than a month. Mm-hmm. With a film, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, it's the work is very much the same. I mean, the homework that I do and my approach to things for both in film and TV is very similar. The primary difference is we're shooting an episode of television on average in 8 days. So the average hour episodic, so the 44 minutes that they need to produce, we have just over a week to shoot that. Whereas in film, as you say, the average schedule, depending on the budget for the film, is anywhere between 3 weeks to 5 months. So there tends to be a lot more takes in film. There tends to be not as much urgency. It doesn't move as quickly. In television, you're firing through this fast. So you better show up prepared and ready to rock and roll right now. There's very rarely any rehearsal in television, whereas in film, sometimes you'll be able to eke out a rehearsal budget, which gives a chance to be able to play with the other actors and discover stuff together. In TV, as I said, you need to show up with your choices made. You know where you're going. Obviously, you're going to be influenced by what the other actors are giving you, by what the director has to offer, and at times even the writer giving notes. But for the most part, it's a much faster-moving medium for us to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a lot quicker in television. Some may say it's a little bit more at ease than film, but you may not get a whole lot out of television than you do in film. Maybe you can't express your character as much as you would do in film.
Yeah, it's true. There's also the reality is that on television, people have a remote control in their hands. So you need to be giving them something to pay attention to at all times. There are very few silences on TV. It's going to go rapid fire unless you've earned a pause. For the most part, it's going to keep moving at a quick pace. Whereas in film, people will take their time, and there'll be more beauty shots of people thinking and discovering things. The exception to that is some of the stuff that we've been seeing on AMC in the last few years. And if you look at a program like Mad Men or The Killing, these are extraordinary shows where the writing is so specific and so beautiful, and they are brave enough to create silence on film. That doesn't happen very often in TV, where no one is saying anything, and there's just stillness. And I think they trust the audience enough, and their actors and directors, to be able to allow for that space and know that they're not going to lose their audience, which I think also speaks to the quality of the programming in general, that you're so dialed in and invested into figuring out the story and following along that you're going to allow the directors to give you 7 seconds of silence and still be keyed in.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever seen Stephen King's Rose Red. I mean, the girl that played in that film, she didn't say almost nothing throughout the entire film. Her eyes said it all.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I don't know that you would get that in television. I don't know that, and certainly in modern TV, that, again, with a couple of exceptions that I've already referred to, I don't know that you would get that on an average network television show. I really don't.
Yeah, and sometimes the TV show just end up going to shit due to either lack of attention toward it or just lack of funds.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly a show will get dumped. I mean, if it doesn't do well in its numbers in the first 3 to 4 episodes, how many times have we seen a series be canceled without even airing its full first season?
I mean, MASH almost got completely gone.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. Which one?
MASH almost got completely gone. Except they were moving around about a dozen times.
Can you imagine? Imagine what we would have missed out on.
Oh yeah, man, that just suck. But I mean, they may count almost more than 100 and some odd episodes. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some you don't see television today. There's not a whole lot of really great shows anymore. Like like MASH and All in the Family and stuff. So like, there's no real family shows anymore.
I guess there isn't. I hadn't really thought about it, but it seems as though family shows have become much more cynical in their approach, which maybe that reflects our culture, and that people are generally more cynical, and they don't want to see the straight-up family stories anymore.
No, the teeny boppers want to go see so-called reality shows on TV.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I know I'm getting old because oftentimes there'll be someone who's... I didn't know who Justin Bieber was until about 4 months ago. I had no idea. I was hearing about Bieber fever, and I was like, damn, I think I'm getting old because this kid's been around for a while now. Everyone's nuts about him. I had no idea who he was. I didn't know if he was an actor or a singer or what. I'm just not dialed in to what I guess younger audiences are after these days.
Yeah, it's all about the whole popularity. It's always been that way, but I mean, on television-wise, everything's all cluttered with these reality shows, and I really don't see how they get these ratings. I guess about 14-year-olds are watching this stuff.
Yeah, it's a little embarrassing, but I have a hunch people even older than 14 are watching a lot of the reality shows. It seems to be a substitution for actually going out and getting one's own life and trying things that scare you. You'd rather watch someone on television try something that scares them, which, I don't know, there's something really sad about that commentary on our society.
You get a couple of actually decent, drama series like House.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see a lot of those. Like you see a lot of cop shows, but as I said before, you get a lot of copying in television. One show copies another show, a new show pops up, and they're copying off a previous show that's fairly new, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've seen it all.
Yeah, it's very true. There are very few unique and new stories that are being told. At the very least in network television. I find that on some of the cable networks, like AMC, HBO, you're starting to see really interesting shows. I don't know if you've seen, Nurse Jackie is genius.
Yes, I've seen that.
Oh, I mean, the acting in that show and the writing blow my socks. I mean, they're just terrific. And Paul Schultz, who plays Eddie on that, I did a show with him last summer. Fell madly in love with him as a person. He's just a wonderful man. And now to see his work on that show, having met him and know what he really is, I now see how talented he is as an actor, because he's a completely different dude. And Merritt Weaver, I believe her name is, that plays a nurse on that. If you can picture the script and then listen to the way that she says her dialogue, that woman has created one of the greatest characters in television today. She's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Even with film, for the longest time, it's not really feminist or anything, but for the longest time, female roles has pretty much been downplayed.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of good actresses play these roles, but they're not very dramatic. They're pretty much just stand-ins.
Yes, it happens a lot. I mean, it's more often than not, protagonists have been men. So it's male narratives and men's stories that are being told. And, you can't really complain about it because that's been the reality of this business for a really long time. It gets a little old with playing the wife, the mother, the supporting character to a man's story.
Yeah.
But, it's up to those of us who are in this business to start generating some new content and to start getting out there and trying to affect some change and tell stories that are women's stories. It is happening more and more now.
Yes.
Even in dramatic television, where you would see a series that are about women and the men are supporting characters, but it hasn't. I don't think it has yet been done as skillfully as it can be. I think that there's still a great amount of potential out there for us to continue to do storytelling. It's really, really compelling. Again, I'll reference The Killing. When you look at the lead character in that, it's a female protagonist, and it's a woman's story.
Yeah.
And the storytelling is just amazing in that show. So it definitely exists. The possibility exists for us.
Yeah, as I said, it's definitely got a little bit better because now females are actually getting some actual roles, not just the girl that gets hit by a car.
Yep.
Or the girl that just stands there making coffee.
Totally. I've played my fair share of characters where I'm crying because my baby's about to die. I have to give away my baby. My husband just died. My husband's going to die. And for a long time there, I think I was the go-to person for, all right, you need someone to cry, let's call Chelah. So I'm happy that I'm able to start moving away from that and doing a little bit more dynamic and interesting things every now and then.
No. All right, we got to wind down the time. But
all right.
Why don't you go ahead and plug in maybe some web addresses and including your new projects that's coming out?
Okay. Well, of course, we've already talked about it. The Rise of the Planet of the Apes is coming out on August 12th. I'm super excited to see that. Additionally, I just finished shooting a wonderful independent film that was written by Ian Tang and directed by Tracy D. Smith. It's called Everything and Everyone, co-starring Ryan Robbins of current Sanctuary fame, and Chad Willett, who was nominated for a Leo last year for his performance in Cole, and has actually appeared in House, speaking of House, and Gabriel Rose, who's wonderful, Jerry Wasserman, extraordinary. Really great cast across the board on that. That will be coming out hopefully in the film festival circuit coming up in the fall. You can find that on Facebook, though, Everything and Everyone, the movie. What else is coming out? I'm doing a new series called Level Up for the Cartoon Network. It's a live-action show for teenagers is who we're going after. We're shooting up here until September, and that'll be premiering in September on the Cartoon Network, and I'm really excited about it. It's super fun comedy with great storylines for every episode.
Aren't you also included, or at least have acted in the horror children's show that you mentioned?
Yes, The Haunting Hour, which is on the Hub Network. I believe the first season has already aired, but of course all of their episodes will be available on their website or through Netflix and whatnot. They're about to start shooting the second season, and each episode it's a half-an-hour format, and it's a horror show for kids. So it sort of tackles a lot of the standard fears. Like the episode that I did was about clowns. It's called Afraid of Clowns, and I think a lot of us can identify with being afraid of clowns. And I got some great feedback and reviews, most particularly from my nephews, who it scared the crap out of. So that's a success in my book.
Wow, there you go, everybody. Chelah Horsdal.
Yes.
Yes, actress, excluding model.
A former model, broken down model. Thank you very much, Mike. This has been really, really fun. Really great to talk to you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're definitely coming back.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it. I'm coming back.
Yeah, you have to act your way over here.
Excellent.